London before it was London. Roman Londinium in 200 AD. Stand on London Bridge and look north toward the city of London. The glass towers of the financial district rise above you. The dome of St. Paul's Cathedral sits behind them, lower than the modern towers but far older. The Thames moves beneath you, wide, grey, tidal, the same river it has always been. Millions of people move through this part of the city every day. The ground beneath your feet has been continuously occupied for longer than almost any other site in Northern Europe. Now remove everything built after the year 410 AD. Remove St. Paul's. Remove the medieval city walls. Remove every church, every market, every house, every street that was laid down across the following 16 centuries. Go further back past the Norman conquest, past the Viking raids, past the Anglo-Saxon settlement. Keep going until you reach the moment when the city was not London at all, when it was Londinium. What you are left with is one of the most remarkable provincial capitals the Roman Empire ever built. A city of perhaps 30,000 people at its 2nd century peak, constructed almost entirely from scratch by Roman engineers on a site that had held no significant settlement before their arrival. A city with a basilica larger than any medieval building that would stand on English soil for 1,000 years after it. A city with a functioning port, a road network radiating outward to every corner of Roman Britain, a forum, public baths, temples, an amphitheatre, and a governor's palace on the Thames waterfront. A city that was, for 3.5 centuries, the administrative and commercial capital of the Roman province of Britannia, and then, within 2 generations of the Roman departure, almost entirely abandoned. This is the story of London before it was London. This is what Londinium actually was at the height of its Roman existence, and how completely that city vanished before the city we know today began to grow back on the same ground. Chapter 1. Geography and the decision to build. Londinium did not exist before the Romans arrived in Britain. When Julius Caesar made his 2 exploratory expeditions to Britain in 55 and 54 BC, there was no settlement of any significance at the point where the Thames would eventually be bridged. The Iron Age tribes of southeastern Britain, the Catavilani north of the river, the Trinovantes to the east, had their centers of power at places like Camulodunum, the modern Colchester. The serious Roman invasion came in 43 AD under Emperor Claudius. The invading force of approximately 40,000 troops, commanded by Aulus Plautius, crossed the Thames and established a bridgehead. Within a few years, a permanent crossing had been built at the point where the Thames was both narrow enough to bridge and deep enough to accommodate seagoing vessels. The site of the modern London Bridge, or very close to it. The location was chosen with Roman practicality. 2 low gravel hills on the north bank, Cornhill and Ludgate Hill, provided stable, well-drained ground above the Thames floodplain. The river at this point was tidal, which meant vessels from the continent could sail directly to the settlement without transshipment. The same tidal reach that made the location commercially valuable also made it a natural convergence point for road building. Once you had bridged the Thames, you had bridged the single greatest geographical obstacle in southeastern Britain, and roads could radiate outward to every part of the province from that fixed point. Londinium grew rapidly. By the time of the Boudiccan revolt in 60 or 61 AD, the settlement was already described by the Roman historian Tacitus as a place famous for commerce and crowded with traders. Tacitus was writing within living memory of the events he described, and his account of Londinium being burned and its population massacred or fled is one of the earliest written references to the city. After the revolt was suppressed, Londinium was rebuilt and rebuilt on a significantly more ambitious scale. By the late 1st century and into the 2nd century, it had become the largest city in Roman Britain and its effective administrative capital. Even though Camulodunum had been the original colonial capital, the pragmatic logic of Londinium's position, its port, its road connections, its river crossing made it the natural center of provincial life. By the year 200 AD, our focal date, Londinium was at or near the height of its development. What had been built on those 2 Thames-side hills in the century and a half since the Claudian invasion was extraordinary by the standards of the northwestern Roman provinces. Chapter 2: Urban Layout and Infrastructure. The Londinium of 200 AD was a planned Roman city overlaid on a practical riverside geography, and its layout reflected both the systematic approach of Roman urban planning and the specific demands of its role as a port and administrative center. The city covered approximately 130 hectares within what would become, in the late 2nd and early 3rd century, its defensive wall circuit. That wall, the London Wall, significant portions of which still survive and can be seen today, was constructed in the late 2nd or early 3rd century, enclosing the settled area on the north and east, while the Thames served as the natural southern boundary. The wall was built of Kentish ragstone transported up the Thames by barge, approximately 3 meters thick and estimated to have stood around 6 meters high, with interval towers and gates at the points where the main roads entered the city. The street grid of Roman Londinium was not as rigidly regular as the ideal Roman colonial grid. The terrain of the two hills and the constraints of the riverside location introduced variations, but the main streets followed a broadly organized pattern. The primary east-west route ran along the ridge of the higher ground. North-south streets descended toward the Thames waterfront and toward the bridge. The Forum and Basilica complex occupied the summit of Cornhill, the higher of the two main hills, and dominated the city's urban geography. The Basilica of Roman Londinium, constructed in its final and largest form around 100 AD and expanded subsequently, was by any measure a monumental structure. Measuring approximately 167 meters in length, it was the largest building north of the Alps in the Roman Empire at the time of its construction. It functioned as the city's administrative center, law court, and commercial exchange, the combination of functions that the Roman basilica building type was designed to serve. Adjacent to the basilica was the Forum, the open colonnaded square that served as the city's public meeting place and market. The Forum of Roman Londinium was one of the largest in the western Roman provinces, covering an area of approximately 168 meters by 167 meters. Shops and offices lined its colonnaded walkways. Public life, commercial, judicial, political, and social, was concentrated here. The Thames waterfront was the economic engine of the city. Archaeological excavation along the northern bank of the Thames has revealed remarkable evidence of the Roman waterfront's scale and sophistication. Timber quays extended into the river, their construction dated by dendrochronology, the analysis of tree rings in the preserved timbers to specific years in the late 1st and 2nd centuries. Warehouses stood immediately behind the quayside. The volume of pottery, amphora fragments, and other commercial debris recovered from Thames for shore deposits documents a port handling goods from across the Roman world. Wine and olive oil from Spain and southern Gaul, Samian ware pottery from central Gaul, glass from the Rhineland, fish sauce from the Mediterranean. Chapter 3: Architecture and Monuments. The monumental architecture of Londinium in 200 AD placed it firmly within the visual and functional vocabulary of Roman urbanism. A visitor arriving from Gaul or the Rhineland would have recognized immediately the city's building types, their materials, and their purposes. The construction materials of Roman Londinium combined local resources with imported elements. The primary building material for major structures was ragstone, a hard, gray limestone quarried in Kent and brought to the city by river, used for walls, foundations, and the city's defensive circuit. Tile was produced locally and used extensively for roofing, flooring, and the construction of hypocaust heating systems. Timber remained important for ordinary residential construction and for internal structural elements within masonry buildings. Imported marble appeared in the most prestigious contexts: public buildings, temples, the governor's palace, as facing material and decorative elements. The governor's palace, the Praetorium, was among the most significant structures in the city. Located on the Thames waterfront, it was a large complex appropriate to the residence and administrative center of the governor of Britannia, one of the more important provinces in the northwestern Roman Empire. Archaeological investigation of the site, now beneath Cannon Street Station and its surroundings, has revealed the scale of the complex, which included substantial residential and administrative ranges arranged around courtyards, a large ornamental pool, its remains discovered during construction work, indicates the kind of formal garden setting expected in a high-status Roman official residence. The Amphitheatre of Roman Londinium was discovered beneath Guildhall Yard in the City of London during archaeological excavations in 1988. Its elliptical arena is now partially displayed beneath the modern Guildhall Art Gallery. Visitors to London can stand above the Roman arena floor today. The amphitheatre is estimated to have had a capacity of approximately 6,000 to 7,000 spectators, consistent with the city's population. It hosted gladiatorial contests, animal hunts, and public executions, the standard repertoire of Roman amphitheater entertainment, and its construction in the late 1st century represents a significant investment in public leisure infrastructure. The public baths of Roman Londinium are documented at several locations. The most thoroughly investigated is the bath building at Huggin Hill on the Western Hill, a substantial structure with the standard suite of heated rooms: caldarium, tepidarium, frigidarium, served by hypocaust underfloor heating systems. Public baths in a Roman city were not primarily about hygiene in the modern sense. They were the principal venue for daily social life outside the home and workplace. Places where citizens of different social classes mixed, conducted business, exercised, and spent significant portions of their leisure time. Temples are documented at multiple locations within and around Londinium. The Temple of Mithras, the Mithraeum, discovered on the bank of the Walbrook stream in 1954, and now reconstructed and displayed at the Bloomberg London building near its original site, is one of the best known. The Mithras cult was particularly popular among soldiers and merchants in the Roman world, and its presence in Londinium reflects the cosmopolitan military and commercial character of the city's population. Other temples to Roman deities are attested by inscriptions and sculptural fragments recovered from the city, including dedications to Jupiter, Diana, and the imperial cult. The population of Roman Londinium at its 2nd century peak is estimated by historians and archaeologists at somewhere between 20,000 and 60,000 people. The most commonly cited figure falls around 30,000. These estimates are derived from the city's known extent and archaeological evidence. Londinium was by far the largest settlement in Roman Britain, significantly larger than its nearest competitor, Verulamium, modern Stete Albans. This reflects its unique combination of port, road hub, and administrative center functions, making it crucial for the province. The social composition of Londinium was unusually diverse for a city in the northwestern Roman provinces, a true melting pot. This diversity is documented through specific physical evidence, tombstones, inscriptions, and skeletal remains recovered from cemeteries. A tombstone from Roman London commemorates Aulus Aufidius Aulusa, described as an Athenian, who died in the city aged 70. Another commemorates Claudia Martina, aged 19, set up by her husband Anancletus, a slave of the provincial administration. A third records Celsus, a soldier of the 2nd Augustan Legion, highlighting the military presence. Isotope analysis of skeletal remains identified individuals who grew up in North Africa and the Mediterranean, detectable through chemical signatures. The picture that emerges from this evidence is of a genuinely cosmopolitan urban population, a vibrant mix of cultures. At the top of the social hierarchy sat the governor of Britannia, a senator appointed directly by the emperor, a man of considerable status. Below them were Romanized British elites, wealthy merchants, army veterans, skilled craftsmen, freedmen, slaves, and a transient population. Latin was the language of administration, commerce, and public life, shaping the city's communication. The inscriptions recovered from Roman London are in Latin without exception, a testament to its prevalence. Whether the majority spoke Latin as a first language or used it for commerce alongside native British languages is debated, but the pervasiveness of Latin suggests functional literacy was common among commercial and administrative classes. Daily life in Londinium in 200 AD was organized around the rhythms of a functioning Roman provincial city. The economic foundation was its port and its position as the redistribution hub for the entire province. Imported goods moved outward along the road network to military garrisons, towns, and rural villa estates. In return, British goods like grain, wool, leather, lead, silver, and tin moved through Londinium for export to the continent. The archaeological evidence for this trade is exceptionally rich, especially from the Thames for shore. Waterfront deposits yielded tens of thousands of amphora sherds, containers for wine, olive oil, and fish sauce. Samian ware, high-quality red gloss pottery from Gaul, appears in large quantities, indicating significant imports and purchasing power. Specialist manufacturing was conducted within the city, with evidence for metalworking, leatherworking, and textile production. The Walbrook stream served as an industrial waterway, its silted bed preserving an extraordinary range of organic material. This includes wooden tools, leather shoes, and writing tablets, offering direct insights into daily life. The Bloomberg London writing tablets provide a direct window into the commercial and legal life of Roman Londinium. Dating primarily to between 43 and 200 AD, they record debt obligations, property transactions, and legal agreements. One tablet, dated to 57 AD, is the earliest dated written document found in Britain, recording a financial transaction. These are not artifacts of elite life, but administrative paperwork of ordinary commercial activity, showing deep integration into the Roman world. Food supply for a city of 30,000 people required systematic organization, primarily grain from the agricultural hinterland. Dietary evidence indicates consumption of cattle, sheep, pig, domestic fowl, fish, oysters, and imported foodstuffs like figs and olives. Oysters, in particular, appear in extraordinary quantities, consumed at multiple social levels, available from the Thames estuary. Londinium in 200 AD was the seat of government for one of Rome's most significant northwestern provinces. The province of Britannia had been created by the Claudian invasion of 43 AD, and governed by a succession of Roman senatorial governors. By the late 2nd century, the south was pacified. The military frontier had moved northward to Hadrian's Wall. Londinium, far to the south, was a civilian administrative capital rather than a military base. The governor, the emperor's direct representative, held military command and civil jurisdiction. His residence and administrative center in Londinium was the Praetorium on the Thames waterfront, a building of imperial authority. The financial administration was handled separately by the procurator responsible for tax collection and mining revenues. This reflected the Roman practice of separating military and financial authority at the provincial level. The city itself had a degree of local self-government through its ordo, a council of property-owning citizens. They managed municipal affairs, maintained local infrastructure, and oversaw public religious observances. Military presence in the city itself was not dominant, though a small garrison was maintained for security. Soldiers from legions stationed at York, Chester, and Caerleon passed through regularly, connecting the province. A fort was constructed on the northwestern edge of the city, providing a garrison for the administrative capital. But Londinium in 200 AD was fundamentally a civilian city, shaped by commerce, administration, and urban life. Chapter 7: Religion and Cultural Life. The religious life of Londinium in 200 AD reflected the Roman approach to religion. It was plural, tolerant of diversity, and organized around public ritual obligation to the official Roman pantheon. This included gods like Jupiter, Juno, Minerva, Mars, and the imperial cult, which was the ideological glue of Roman provincial loyalty. These obligations were civic duties, expressions of loyalty to Rome and the emperor, as much as personal spiritual acts. Alongside official religion, Londinium's cosmopolitan population brought a remarkable diversity of religious practice. The Mithraeum on the Walbrook, dedicated to the mystery cult of Mithras, served soldiers, merchants, and officials. An inscription found in London records a dedication to the mother goddesses, reflecting the cultural hybridity of the Romano-British population. Evidence for the cult of Isis has also been found, with a graffito from Southwark referring to a temple of Isis in Londinium. Christianity was present in Roman Britain by the 3rd century, but evidence for a significant community in Londinium in 200 AD is limited. The city's religious landscape at this date was primarily traditional Roman polytheism in its diverse provincial forms. Cultural life beyond religion centered on public institutions. The amphitheatre offered spectacles like gladiatorial combat and animal hunts. Public baths provided daily social gathering, and the forum was the stage for public life and commercial interaction. Whether Londinium had a theatre remains uncertain. No clear structure has been positively identified in the archaeological record. Conclusion: from Londinium to London. Londinium in 200 AD, a city of 30,000, its basilica the largest building north of the Alps. Its port handled goods from the Mediterranean to the North Sea. It reached its peak, then began a long, irregular decline. The political crises of the 3rd century disrupted trade and administration across the empire. Britain was periodically separated from central imperial administration during episodes of usurpation, like the Gallic Empire. Londinium's population and commercial activity contracted through the later 3rd and 4th centuries. Though the city remained the provincial capital, it continued to function as a significant urban center. The formal end of direct Roman administration in Britain came in 410 AD, when Emperor Honorius instructed communities to look to their own defense. By this date, the Roman economic and administrative systems that sustained Londinium were severely disrupted. Without state infrastructure, the economic logic of urban concentration dissolved. What followed was one of the most dramatic episodes of urban abandonment in British history. Londinium was largely empty. The population essentially disappeared from the walled city. The dark earth layer records soil accumulation over abandoned urban surfaces. Buildings collapsed, and vegetation colonized empty ground. The Anglo-Saxon settlement that eventually developed was not within the Roman walls. Only in the 9th century, under Alfred the Great, did settlement move back inside the Roman walls. The Roman street pattern, wall circuit, and building foundations were reincorporated into the reviving city. Walk through the city of London today, and traces of Londinium are present if you know how to find them. The course of the London Wall is marked on the modern street plan. The site of the Forum and Basilica lies beneath Gracechurch Street and Leadenhall Market. The Mithraeum is displayed beneath the Bloomberg building. The amphitheatre's outline is preserved beneath Guildhall Yard. The greatest Roman city in Britain was built in 150 years, flourished for a century, then contracted and emptied over 2 centuries. The city that replaced it, the London we know, grew back on the same ground across the following millennium. Londinium built the infrastructure that made London possible: the river crossing, the road network, urban settlement at this bend of the Thames. Everything that came after was built, directly or indirectly, on the foundation Roman engineers and commerce laid. London did not know it was Roman, but it could not have existed without Rome. The city beneath the city is still there, waiting under every construction project, every basement excavation, every new development, to remind those who find it of what was here before.